This is a Ford 1.9 CVH head. So, being this is a Hemi head, it's from the 1.9 EFI high output motor, and this one is also the roller cam and lifter model. Now, for whatever reason, this one has really nasty intake ports. There's a lot of flashing in there and a lot of what I'd say is kind of like slag. Just terrible casting. So bad that the actual coolant port is smoother on the bottom than these guys are. But there's also a few abnormalities in some of these. Like there's that black divot there towards the top. Then on the bowl side of our intake, you can see they use this nasty bowl cut. It is dreadful, and it hurts flow all around. It doesn't help much at all. But it kind of seems like they did the bowl cut and seat cut all with one tool, one bit. Makes it pretty nasty. The exhaust side isn't like that. On the exhaust side, they tool the bowl, then install the seat, then tool the seat. And the exhaust side is so bad, you can see that it's kind of like I'm looking at on the bottom side of a clear seat with someone sitting on it. That's what it kind of looks like. And it's just terrible. The rest of the exhaust port is pretty standard as far as these CVH heads go. The 1.9s, they all have smaller exhaust ports. And what's in there is kind of par for the course. Nothing too crazy, but there's a little bit of a texture there, and you want to get that down to a smooth mirror finish. I'm getting there over here. My next step will be giving it a uniform finish. I got rid of all the weird divots and crap in these, so now I just need to get them all to a nice smooth kind of polished surface, like my head gasket plane is, but then actually go through and polish them like my combustion chambers have been. Now the combustion chambers, Ford CNCs these from the factory, and normally all the 1.6s I've ever seen have really good CNCing on these, and they leave a kind of thick groove rings all the way out from the inside in. Makes for a really good controlled burn and combustion. But with these, for whatever reason, the tool paths on these were goofed up pretty bad. I see in some places it's heavier than it is in others, and this is after I've went and polished these heads, or the combustion chambers I should say. You can just see all the terrible tool paths. It's real deep in some spots. It crosses back over in other spots. It's real nasty. So if yours is anything like that, it's a good idea to just make it all smooth again and then polish it. It'll prevent carbon from ever accumulating on there. But if your tool path is nice and smooth, or I shouldn't say smooth, nice and uniform all the way around, then it's your choice. You can either polish it and it'll prevent carbon from building up on it, or you can leave it and it might possibly have a more even burn, which could help power or fuel economy, maybe both. I'm not too sure. Someday I'll do a side-by-side test solely between polished combustion chambers and then leaving the combustion chamber with the nice milling. Now, some of the things you want to do to the ports, you can see I've gone through all the ports on cylinders 1 and 2 over here. I've made the texture of the ports nice and smooth. Leave a little bit of a texture there. Just go over it with like 120 to 180, something in there. Grit sandpaper is all you need. You go ahead and polish the intake ports. You'll find that fuel will form in the droplets, and the droplets will stick onto the walls of the port, giving you poor fuel flow, poor fuel delivery. Also makes for very hard startups when the engine is cold. But you can see there's a big change from these nasty bowl cuts that they had to opening up properly and blending the valve seat with the rest of the port properly. You see it's a nice smooth transition in all the ones I've done so far. It works out quite well. Where you want to spend a lot of time is on the sides here. We'll turn the camera like this so it kind of makes the port go up. But on these left and right sides, that's where you want to spend some time. If we look over here, you can see that's where the most amount of metal is, at least on this casting. Now my other castings are better than this one. This just happens to be the worst out of all of mine. And it is dreadful. Again, the exhaust side is quite poor. The big thing with the exhaust porting, or I should say the exhaust port casting on the side, is there's a big old ledge underneath the exhaust seat. You can see how it casts that big shadow under it. And that's with my flashlight directly above the seat perpendicular. Casts that nasty shadow. And then there's this ring here right under it. I tried getting that out the best I could in these other two ports, and I got really close. But I called it a day on both of those. They're as good as they need to be. If I could do more, that would be better. But really didn't want to get carried away. The exhaust ports on these guys are arguably too big for these engines. On the 1.6s, they say don't touch the exhaust port at all unless you're going turbo, because the exhaust ports on the 1.6s are much bigger than this. They're about 1/8 of an inch bigger all around. But you can see on the 1.9 here that the inside diameter here is a close match to the inside diameter of the exhaust seat. Whereas the intake isn't much bigger than the exhaust, but our intake seat interior diameter matches the interior diameter of my new ports. So here there's not too much of a drastic change. Most of it is just giving it a uniform finish. Like I said, getting rid of any of all that nasty casting and flanging and crap. And then there's that cast line that goes down half of the port. That is nasty. Try to get rid of that the best you can. And then once you're done with that, just give it a nice smooth texture, like I said. Now, when you're doing any of these ports, it's important not to be gasket matching. What you want to be doing is matching these ports to whatever manifolds you're using. Because say you want a gasket match, and you're gonna ream them out to the size of your gasket. Okay, yeah, you can do that, but you'll find that the gasket, depending on which one you get, will be a lot bigger than what you have or what you need, and will also be bigger than your intake manifold. Again, depending on what you have and what you need. See over here how this intake gasket is egg-shaped, like the ports are, but these intake gaskets, they're egg-shaped, and they actually favor the bottom right corners on the right ports and the bottom left corners on the left ports. So the port shape of this intake manifold gasket kind of points up in the center. Now if we set this on this carbureted intake manifold I got, this is a 1.6 intake manifold. You'll see that these are also egg-shaped, but not as wide at the bottom, and they don't point to the top left. I'm sorry, this is a 1.9 intake manifold. I knew something was up, because the 1.6s, they're kind of flat here at the bottom, and that makes them even worse for port match or gasket matching. And then, not to mention, there's also variances in gaskets alone. All right, here is what I believe is a I think it's the Felpro intake manifold gasket. And you see these holes are pretty much perfect circles. Okay. Oh yeah, you'll have a lot of airflow. And you would if you're turbocharging, but otherwise you really won't. Because look at that. You're going from an egg shape to a completely round circle. We put both on the head. You'll see what's going on here. Look at that. One is overkill, the other overlaps the other, and neither one matches the head well. You take them, put them over here, neither one definitely matches the intake manifold. I mean, you couldn't even ream out your carb intake to this. You can't even bother. I mean, you're out of metal if you go for this full circle one. So you got to know what you're working with. And then, the same rules apply for working on the exhaust side. Depending on what kind of exhaust manifold or header you're using for the exhaust side, you'll be running into the same issues. Now, all of the exhaust gaskets that I've come across for these have all been pretty uniform. They've all been exactly this shape. They all come in different types of gaskets. Some are multi-layer, some are fiber with metal. There's a lot of options there. But they all have this same exact port shape in all of them. And it's huge. You do not want to be opening up your exhaust to that. I don't even know if you want to be opening these up to match your tubular headers. If you have a cast manifold, maybe that's what you want to tinker with, is try making your cast manifold flow a little bit more. The tubular headers you won't be able to match to your head very well, or vice versa. Just because that's big. That's a big increase. And you really don't need it unless you're running boost. If you're running boost, yeah man, open this up, make it match your headers, and then send them nice tubular headers straight to a turbo, and then boom. And now you're cooking with fire. But that's kind of everything I wanted to go over. When I will do more videos of more heads as I go through them, so you can keep track of some of the castings. And then some of you do have lean burn heads, some of you have 1.6s, some of you have the 1.9 carb heads. They're all different in their own special way. But we'll also go over some other things like modifications you can do to the inside of the head and so forth and so forth. But we'll stop here so YouTube can actually upload this video, and we'll see you guys again later.